Before we start off this video, I feel like there's a couple of things that you need to know about me. First, I'm Catholic, which means I'm highly judgmental. Second, I'm not an investigative journalist. I'm just some random bitch on the internet who has a caffeine addiction. Third, well, I kinda hate Chris Pratt. Hi, I'm Tuesday, October 2nd, 2021. Christopher Michael Pratt made this Instagram post celebrating his wife Katherine Schwarzenegger, his life, and his child. At first glance, this post feels pretty innocuous, but just like anything else on the internet, it was looked at, analyzed, and deconstructed by Anna Faris fans, Chris Pratt haters, and basically anybody who had Twitter at that time. Who is Anna Faris, you ask? She's an actress, podcaster, and writer. First wife of Chris Pratt and mother to their son, Jack Pratt. Now, why was this post the reason for both Chris Pratt and Anna Faris' name to start trending on Twitter? Because of this section right here, where Chris talks about his healthy baby girl. Now, why would anybody have a problem with that? Well, let me explain. Before Pratt began his relationship with Katherine Schwarzenegger, he and Anna Faris were married for about 8 years. In 2012, they had a son named Jack Pratt. Newborn Jack Pratt suffered a cerebral hemorrhage after being born 9 weeks early and spending about a month in the NICU. The hemorrhage that Jack Pratt had resulted in impaired vision and a non-threatening heart problem. Anna Faris actually talks a little bit about it in her podcast. If you're interested in listening to what her thoughts and views are, I'll be sure to link it down below. People who know this information are Anna Faris fans, Chris Pratt haters, and people who have access to E-News. And they all collectively went to Chris Pratt's Twitter and Instagram to collectively drag him. And as of today, November 12th, 13th, even actress Busy Phillips has thrown in her 2 cents. Notice how I said Chris Pratt haters twice. Being someone with any type of platform, you're bound to have people who don't like you. But in regards to Chris Pratt, it seems like the overall feeling that a lot of people have is that they just don't like him. And I know what you're thinking.
Midwest Bimbo, why don't people like Chris Pratt?
I'm going to be honest with you, I genuinely believe it's because people find Chris Pratt really fucking annoying. The shared comments underneath my Chris Pratt videos alone are just people calling him highly obnoxious, but I think with the rest of this video, I'm going to give you some actual reasons to dislike him rather than just finding him annoying. So let's get into it. Yeah.
Hello, stop screaming. Hello, welcome to the second part of this video. I'm sick. Let's talk about religion. 2019, Susanna Guthrie of Elle Australia wrote an article titled Chris Pratt's Religion, How He Became a Devout Christian. In this article, she talks about Chris Pratt's 2019 Instagram post where he's talking specifically about Katherine Schwarzenegger and how the post felt oddly religious, but it's not the first time that Chris Pratt has talked about religion on the internet. In 2017, at the Teen Choice Awards, Chris Pratt won Best Actor in a Sci-Fi whatever.
With the ease and grace I have in my heart without my Lord and Savior Jesus Christ.
Now, according to this article, Chris Pratt has actually been very religious since he was a teenager. So none of this and none of him getting into religion in the future, like now, should be very surprising to people, I guess. There's always been religious undertones.
But Midwest Bimbo, what's wrong with religion?
Well, nothing actually is wrong with religion. I've had friends and family who have found religion in the past decade or who have gone back to their respective religions over time. I mean, even my own father, who was a liar and a hypocrite, has found God. The problem here isn't religion. The problem here is the church, specifically Chris Pratt's church. It's LA Zoe Church. Zoe Church was founded by Pastor Chad Veach and Julia Veach in 2015. Chad Veach is an American evangelical pastor who is a member of the Hillsong Leadership Network, and he's basically molded the entirety of LA Zoe Church after Hillsong Church, which is very important. Now, I've read a lot of articles, and I don't know if it's me, and I don't know if it's journalists, but it seems like there are people who are genuinely confused whether or not Chris Pratt has actually gone to Hillsong. Some places say Hillsong, other places say LA Zoe Church. Pratt, if you're watching this video, I'm going to need you to fly on down to the comment section and let me know which one it is, or if you've gone to both, actually. Either way, Hillsong Church is what inspired LA Zoe Church. So I feel like no matter what, it's important to talk about Hillsong Church. Just an FYI, in this section of the video, I will be talking about evangelicalism, scandals, abuse, lawsuits, etc. If talk about religion and talk about abuse makes you feel uncomfortable, please go ahead and skip this part of the video. This is your trigger warning, basically. So I'm actually not going to get too deeply into what evangelicalism is. All you really need to know is that it's an offshoot of Protestantism. Shout out to Martin Luther. Either way, I'm going to read out the Merriam-Webster definition of what evangelical is. Of, relating to, or being in agreement with the Christian gospel, especially as it is presented in the four Gospels, also emphasizing salvation by faith and atoning death of Jesus Christ through personal conversion, the authority of Scripture, and the importance of preaching as contrasted with ritual. If you're interested in learning more about evangelicalism, or especially Hillsong Church, there are so many good content creators, not only here on YouTube, but also, again, on TikTok, who have gone to the church, or have studied it enough that I feel like they know a thing or two about what they are saying. Fundy Fridays actually has an amazing video about Hillsong Church that I highly recommend. I've taken some notes from them and some articles that I've read online. I highly recommend it. Hillsong Church is a church that was founded in Australia in 1983 by brothers Brian and Bobby Houston. Hillsong describes itself as a contemporary church with broad structure of one house with many rooms, with arms to be a global movement positioned at the intersection of Christianity and culture. To be honest with you, I have no clue what the fuck that means, but I find it really interesting how they talk about Christianity and culture, especially in regards to the fact of the way that they've used their social media presence. They have Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, YouTube, and they also have a TikTok. I honestly, at this point, wouldn't be surprised if they had a Tumblr. If you hadn't guessed it already, Hillsong is a mega church. They have over 80 branches in 21 countries. They run two colleges, one in Sydney, Australia, and the other one in Phoenix, Arizona. They have a massive business empire that makes over $100 million in annual revenue from tithing, from merch, from stadium concert tours to their music. It's serving Hydra. And the founder is very threatening aura-wise, but past that, he has written 15 books, one of which is titled You Need More Money: Discovering God's Amazing Financial Plan for Your Life. I personally love it when Christianity and capitalism coincide and make this very ugly baby. If you want a quick laugh, I highly recommend reading some of the book reviews that people have left him. They are not kind. I hadn't guessed already that Hillsong is on the conservative, right-wing Republican side. I'm here to let you know it's exactly that. Brian Houston has been chummy with ex-president Donald Trump and has also been kind of biffs, probably not most recently, with Australian Prime Minister Scott Morrison. I need it for you to click in your head just how powerful this church is. Think about its money, think about its political influence, and then when you think about the celebrity influence, Chris Pratt, Justin Bieber, apparently at one point Lana Del Rey went to this church.
Okay, so Midwest Bimbo, what's wrong with the church?
Don't worry, baby, I'm getting there. In this section, I am going to be talking about scandals and abuse. So some of the most recent scandals that Hillsong has faced have to do with its founder, Brian. The Australian police have been investigating him for about 2 years now in relation to his father, Frank Houston's alleged sexual abuse. The police allege that Brian Houston has known about his father's sexual abuse as far back as 1999. Of course, he's pleaded not guilty, but the court hearing or whatever is November 23rd. Yes, I have it written on my calendar. I'm very interested in what's going to happen.
Surprise, surprise, nothing has actually happened, and the case has been deferred until 2022.
Last month, he stepped down from the board of his church, but as of right now, he remains a global senior pastor. If you think that's bad, just wait. There's more. This year, 2021, Darnell Barrett shared explicit photos of himself with one of his Instagram's followers. He claimed it was an accident, it was a mistake, but he resigned from his position anyways. The Dallas branch of Hillsong Church has actually completely closed its doors after an internal investigation of their lead pastors, Reed and Jess Bogart, who resigned in January, by the way, showed that they were naughty. Reed Bogart was the head of the finances of Hillsong New York City, where former members alleged that he and Jess exploited congregants for free labor and used tithe money to fund their luxurious lifestyles. To be honest, they probably were just taking a little note after Brian's book. So, can they really be blamed? They were just taking initiative. In 2018, a group of church volunteers sent a letter to the ministry leaders claiming that there were, quote, verified, widely circulated stories of inappropriate sexual behavior amongst staff and interns at the church. If you want to take a stab at where that went, go ahead. Let's do some lawsuits now, shall we? There's one for $100,000 with the Wall Street Theater Company that alleged that Hillsong has not paid their rent at all for their weekly religious services they do at this theater, and then also that Hillsong had a little bit of sticky fingers in regards to some of their electronic equipment. Their other lawsuit, I'm going to call Big Papa, is for 20 million smackaroos. Not here in America, but actually in Australia. They're being sued by almost 300 apartment owners who claim that Hillsong and the construction company it hired to build the Rosebery housing complex did so in a structurally unsound fashion. Allegedly, structural engineers deemed that the buildings, the balconies, the windows were structurally unsound and unsafe, not up to code. Apartments in this complex run anywhere from $440,000 to $945,000. Do that math, if you will. The church said, oopsie, I'm going to file a counterclaim. It's not actually our fault. It's the construction company's fault. If you look at some of the YouTube videos here about Hillsong, and if you look at what some of the people on TikTok have said about Hillsong, Hillsong has a habit of telling everyone that it is a church for everyone. That it has arms wide open for everyone, including the LGBTQ. a lot of people who are actually part of the LGBTQ community have said that that is blatantly false. Actually, that Elliot Page and Pratt got into a little tete-a-tete on Twitter over this issue. Elliot Page claimed that Hillsong has been very anti-LGBTQ. Chris Pratt was like, no, not my church. Here's a meme that he posted on Twitter. USA Today had an interview with Houston where he said this.
I want us to get better at the way we communicate and embrace and work with people who are gay. I don't have any personal bias at all against gay or lesbian people, but unfortunately as a pastor you don't represent what you think, you represent what the Bible says. And so at this point we still are conservative on the subject of active gay relationship, etc. But it's a journey, but everyone's welcome. Many people who are gay come to Hillsong Church.
So if you hadn't already guessed how they felt about LGBTQ people, well, I'm just gonna let you know right now. They hate them.
Now, I originally was going to drink wine for this section of the video to make me seem like more classy or whatever, but I'm going to be showing my real Midwestern roots because I need something a little bit stronger, so we're going to dip into the moonshine. I've shared it with my parents. Good soup. Evangelicalism aside, I think that it's safe to say that Chris Pratt at least shows a lot Republican, conservative, right-wing type beat in regards to his political affiliations. If you don't believe me, we're gonna go down a quick list of some of the people that he follows on Twitter. Republican U.S. Senator Ben Sasse, Republican former U.S. UN Ambassador Nikki Haley, Meghan McCain, Republican United States Representative for Texas Dan Crenshaw, humiliation cake extraordinaire and WAP hater Ben Shapiro. The rest of Chris Pratt's following, you can tell that he has a love of the police and the military. He follows Chief of LAPD Michael Moore, Alex Villanueva, the U.S. Air Force, Special Enforcement Bureau, the FBI Los Angeles, LAPD Communication Division, LAPD HQ, and the LA County Sheriff. I also want to say right now that he has this tweet that has now been deleted. Some people on TikTok specifically thought that it was photoshopped. It's not. We can take a quick look at the Wayback Machine. It's still up. I specifically retweeted it on a day that it was getting ratioed to hell. A lot of people have been saying, especially in my comment section on TikTok, that it's satire, that it's a joke, that it's sarcasm. And to that I have to say, Chris Pratt at that time was still in his 30s. Why is a white man in his 30s making a joke like that, first of all? Second of all, the more that we look into his brother, it doesn't feel like a joke, or at least a joke that he most definitely should not be making. Tully Pratt is Chris Pratt's brother. He is a sergeant for the Solano County Sheriff's Department in California. He sells decorative artworks as a side hobby, as a side hustle, some of which show Chris Pratt's characters from Guardians of the Galaxy or Jurassic World. Some show symbols from the alt-right. Now we're gonna get into the real meat and potatoes of this fucking video. This is the part that you guys have probably actually been waiting for. I follow and have talked to the investigative journalist that has looked into the Solano County Sheriff's Department because a lot of them have been linked to showing support for the alt-right group, the 3%. Now I know what you're thinking. What's the 3%? Don't worry, baby bird. I'm gonna feed you. The Three Percenters are an American and Canadian far-right anti-government militia movement. They advocate for gun ownership, rights, and resistance to the U.S. federal government. Many members of this group are former or current members of the military, police, and other law enforcement agencies. The group's website claims it does not discriminate against anyone, but following the Black Lives Matter protest of 2014 following the shooting of Michael Brown, surprise, surprise, their groups were filled with anti-Black and racist rhetoric. Now, Canada, the country right above us, views the 3% militia group as a terrorist organization. They also view it as one of the most dangerous organizations that the country has ever faced. Are you picking up what I'm laying down? Now, let's get into a timeline of some of the crimes of the 3% in presentation form.
Hello, let's get started, shall we? So, in 2015 in Western Oklahoma, we have Jeremy Doss Hardy, who was arrested for going on a shooting spree on I-40, killing 2 people. He was accused by prosecutors of being part of the 3%. In 2016 in Middlesex Township, Pennsylvania, we have this man whose name I absolutely cannot pronounce, who was arrested and charged with 2 counts of terroristic threats. He told officers that he was a part of the 3% and that he was more than willing to K-word them. In 2016 in Garden City, Kansas, we have Curtis Allen, Gavin Wright, and Patrick Eugene Stein, who were charged in federal court for conspiring to detonate a bomb at an apartment complex where Muslim immigrants from Somalia lived and worshipped. They all were accused of being part of the 3%, and Allen was part of the Marine Corps. In 2017, in Oklahoma City, Oklahoma, Jeremy Drake Varnell, a 3%er, was arrested for trying to detonate a truck bomb in front of a bank. In 2018, Clarence, Illinois, several members of a small militia group called the White Rabbit 3% Illinois Patriot Freedom Fighters Militia, say that 3 times fast, were arrested on a variety of charges in connections to a bombing of a mosque in Minnesota and also a failed bombing of an abortion clinic in Illinois. Majority of those men pleaded guilty. And in 2020, which is last year, this Cleveland man named Christian Stanley Ferguson was arrested on charges of allegedly plotting to ambush police officers, kidnap them, or kill them, take their weapons, and start his own militia group, his own militia uprising, He tried to start his own group, which had branded the 3% logo. Now, mind you, all of these people, all of these men who were convicted of these crimes, who claim to be part of the 3%, some of which have been part of the military, some of which who have been past police officers. These are only the people that have gotten caught, which I feel like is a very strong point. Only the men who got caught were in this list. There's probably actually more. I don't want to bore everybody. This is what I have.
Now, I'm going to remind you once again that majority of the people in this militia group are part of the military, are part of police departments, are part of the court system. It's very far-reaching. I think that it's so incredibly funny that Chris Pratt is part of the Marvel Cinematic Universe because the 3% alt-right group is very much serving something akin to Hydra. The list of the crimes that I just named off are only of people who got caught. That should maintain something in your brain. Only people who got caught. And once again, a large portion of the people in these groups are part of the military, are part of the police department, are part of the court system. There's this phrase that's been used in police departments. I don't know if you've heard it, and it's called crossing the blue line or not crossing the blue line. It's basically a code of silence amongst police officers, and I guess the military too, where instead of leaking out information about your boys in blue and some of the bad things that they've done, instead, police departments will protect their fellow police officers even though they might know that they're doing something illegal. It's very common. It's not a new phrase. It's been around for quite some time. Now, I think that if a certain amount of people or just one person in a sheriff's department have been seen to be possibly a part of an alt-right, right-wing, too many words, militia group, that would fall underneath a code of silence, especially given the fact that the sheriff of Solano County has stated that he does not believe that any of his peers and underlings are part of this terrorist organization, even though they've shown symbols disputing that. Now, for the conclusion of this video, which you should never ever end a paper saying in conclusion, but I digress, here I am. I know that Chris Pratt isn't in charge of what happens at Hillsong or LA Zoe Church. I know that Chris Pratt isn't necessarily a part of the Solano County Sheriff's Department. I understand that. No one has to explain that to me. But when you are part of these institutions or these places that have certain rhetoric, have this certain je ne sais quoi about them, I think that it's safe to say that you probably maybe agree a little bit with their ideals and theologies. I can't speak for Chris Pratt because I'm not Chris Pratt, but his church is homophobic and racist and has been a part of a ton of scams. The sheriff's department that his brother, who he seems to have a decent relationship with, has been linked to an alt-right militia group. I'm not saying that being Republican or being Christian or being conservative are bad things, but I am saying that if you are in these institutions and you're not speaking out about the things that they have been a part of, it feels kind of weird. I've looked back on Solano County in tweets, in messages from people who actually live there, from the investigative journalist, and the police department, the sheriff's department, has been known to be corrupt before this year. It's been years of people saying that there's corruption in that town with the police department, that he has actively given to for charities, hung out with the members, hung out with the different sheriff sergeants. It's getting kind of weird. Do I think that Chris Pratt is part of an alt-right, right-wing militia group? I'm gonna say no. I don't know personally, but I do just want to say that, especially in regards to his political views and his political affiliations, any half-baked PR agent who has even, I don't know, taken one class will tell you it's probably smart for him to keep those things a little bit under wraps. Yes, he's talked a little bit about his church, and yes, he has shown love for the police and the military, but not so much in a way that makes you super suspicious until now, because people have been starting to dig into it and dig into him and dig into his life, and they're getting that there's something weird. I personally have gotten a lot of comments on my TikToks about Chris Pratt from obviously his fans, and it's totally valid, but I think especially in regards to, I don't know, people who are more liberal, people who are more left-leaning, that like at this point of time, it's really important to take into account all of these things that I've named off in this video. And the fact that Chris Pratt hasn't really like commented on any of these things either. He deleted his tweet about the police, didn't really mention anything about it. He hasn't said anything about his brother and the whole alt-right thing. He only really has said those things with Elliot Page in regards to his church and not really any of these scandals or the backlash that this church has faced. It's serving weird. Now, I'm gonna make a tinfoil hat because I'm about to say something actually insane. You guys didn't come here for this part of the video, but I'm gonna give you my little 2 cents anyways. I think, especially in regards to this whole political, he married into the Kennedy family, he married into the Schwarzenegger family, he has high ranks in regards to Hillsong, LA Zoe Church. His brother is part of a sheriff's department in a decently big county. He has friends in high places. I personally believe that Chris Pratt is perfectly groomed for a political run. And even if he himself does not make a political run, you gotta admit, he definitely, like most definitely, oh, I look like a unicorn. He most definitely has the power to endorse somebody to make a very gung-ho political run. That's actually not a joke. And this part of the video is not meant to be funny at all. He has the power to do something like that. Now, I don't personally believe in cancel culture. If you've seen anything from YouTube, Shane Dawson has been able to come back. Jeffree Star has been able to come back. David Dobrik has been able to come back. Trisha Paytas comes back every couple of days. Nothing really stops them. And Chris Pratt is somebody who has an insurmountable amount of power, money, connections. I don't think that cancel culture is really going to happen to him or affect him. That's not anything that is going to happen probably in this lifetime, but I do think that it is important to hold him at least a little bit accountable. The way he talks about his church and his church has been sus. The way that he has given and talked about the sheriff's department, it's sus. He has a net worth of $80 million. He has 7.9 million followers on Twitter. I don't even know how many followers that he has on Instagram. I'm just saying that there's dolls of him at Target. Like, I'm just saying that the possibility or the probability of him making a political run, or at least endorsing someone that could make a political run and get kind of far, should maybe a little bit concern you. Because I'm gonna be real with you, it kind of concerns me. Personally, everyone from Hillsong is probably going to hell. I'm sorry, I'm Catholic. We're so used to judging. Secondly, the Solano County Sheriff's Department, definitely going to hell. It's so incredibly messy. It's so incredibly absurd. And the thought that there are just like these internal investigations happening at Hillsong, happening at the Sheriff's Department, it's really telling, and it makes me really freaked out, because what's an internal investigation going to do in regards to racism or white supremacy? Nothing. This is my pledge to the CIA. Hi. Thank you so much for watching this video. If you could please go ahead and give it a like, if you could comment something nice, but also slightly constructive. This is my first ever video that I've made seriously, and it took weeks of research, of editing, of watching videos, of making sure that everything was to my liking, and it's not even fully that. I don't understand how YouTubers do this on the weekly or daily even. If you would like to support me monetarily, I have a Patreon. The lowest tier is literally $1, and the highest tier will get you cool art prints once a month like this from me, and also discount codes to my online shop where I sell more of my art prints and cool clothes. Thank you so much to my patrons on Patreon. It really means so much to me that people from Twitter and Tumblr and TikTok think that I'm cool enough to make long form content. It is actually kind of low-key my dream. Yeah, like, comment, subscribe, hit that notification bell, all the other stupid things that YouTubers say. Thank you so much. I'll link all of my socials down below so that you can see me being annoying on the internet. And, yeah, I guess I'll see you in the next one. Bye-bye.